Hi, this is Matt Munisteri for Peghead Nation. We're going to work on some of these triad voicings that are used very commonly in this style of early jazz guitar to play melodies and chords at the same time. We're going to be mostly playing three-note voicings that are based on the sort of triads that probably everyone has already played. And the trick here is going to be sometimes playing them with different fingers and also envisioning them as different chords by playing them in positions that you might not be familiar with. So the straight up triad, which I think probably most people are familiar with, there's a C triad, the C, the E, which is the third, and the G, which is the fifth. So if you move up diatonically in triads, diatonically means you're using just the notes in this scale, in a C scale. You wind up, basically what we're doing is we're playing notes on the scale using each string. Okay, and then we're doing the same thing on the second string. And on the first string. And we're going to play just those notes that are found in the scale of C. It's a little tricky when we get all the way up there. But this is more just to point out that this is a shape that probably people are very familiar with. If you're playing an A chord here, you have this same triad shape on the top three strings. We're just moving it up to C. If you take a triad and you change the order of the notes so that you put the third on the bottom, you wind up then putting the root of the chord on the top. And a C triad in the first inversion, taking the third and putting it on the bottom, looks like this. And again, this is a shape that's a tiny piece of a shape that you've all played probably before as a bar chord. But contained in this bar chord are just the top three strings. And we have a C in the first inversion. So we have a C straight ahead triad, 1, 3, and 5. And then a first inversion, which is the 3, 5, and the 1. Now a second inversion, you take the fifth of the chord, in this case a G, and you put that on the bottom. We're going to get the G up here and play this shape. This is something that probably people are familiar with as a D chord, or as a D shape, except we're playing it up here. So I imagine that these are chords, or at least are partial versions of chords that most guitarists have played in the first, couple of months of playing. And one of the things that we're going to be working on as I describe to you how to play these chord melody things is we need terminology. So we need to understand, I can describe it and you can see my hands, but if I say play a C, first inversion on the top three strings, this is where we are. If I say play a C, second inversion on the top three strings, we can do this, or here, an octave higher. But it's going to be handy to get to know this language, because as we progress, things are going to, I might say play a B flat in the first inversion on the top three strings. So looking at these triads, let me just explain a little bit more theory that I'm sure, again, folks are familiar with some of the basics of, but just quickly going over it again is probably a good idea. Here's a C major triad that we played before. If we want to make it minor, we flat the third. In the first inversion, we have the third, the 5, and the 1. If we want to make it minor, we flat the 3rd. In the second inversion, again, we have the 5, the 1, and the 3 now, and we flat the 3rd. We're there, minor. Let's practice moving between the different inversions. This is something that banjo players, both on tenor banjo and on 5-string banjo, do all the time. And learning how to land on the different strings, moving your hand up and down the neck, is key to this, style. And it's only, you're going to get it together only by practicing it slowly. It's not difficult, but you need to give a little bit of thought to the fingers. There are various ways of doing it, but let's try, for starters, playing the C major triad with the 3rd finger, the 4th finger, and the 1st finger. And then sliding up to the 1st inversion. Now for this move, what I'm doing to guide myself is my 3rd finger is staying on the 3rd string and moving up here to the 9th fret. So at the same time that this finger slides here, I then bar the top 2 strings with my index finger. Practice this slide a few times. Now we're going to go from here to the next inversion. In this case, you do have to let go and get it a little bit differently. Your index finger, your 1st finger, comes to the 3rd string. Middle finger, 2nd finger on the 2nd string. 2nd finger on the 1st string. Now, what if we did this a different way? A lot of guitar playing is problem solving. So what if we used the 4th and the 3rd and the 2nd finger to make this shape of a C chord in the 2nd version? That makes sliding down to here a little bit easier. In this case, I have my 2nd finger on the 3rd string, my pinky, my 4th finger on the 2nd string, my 3rd finger on the 1st string. And I'm going to slide down and use my 2nd finger here as the guide on the 3rd string. This enables us to give a little bit of a slide. If we're in this position and we want to go back down to a regular triad, again, we can keep our 3rd string fretted with the 2nd finger and use that as kind of a guide. So depending on where you're going and where you're coming from, you need to get familiar eventually with playing these voicings, simple voicings, with slightly different fingers that you might not be used to. And that's one of the primary hurdles that's not that difficult really, but you need to pay attention to it. You need to be aware of which fingers you're using.